Hi everyone, today I will be discussing about stocks and bonds. This is part of your week 4 modules. It is actually quarter 2, week 5 topic about stocks and bonds. So when we say stocks, it is a form of equity financing or raising money by allowing investors to be part owners of the company. So when we say that you want to buy stocks of a well-known company like Jollibee, you buy stocks and you can be a part owner. So stock prices vary every day. These prices are reported in various media, newspaper, television, or in the internet. So stocks is a form of equity financing. So investing in stocks involves some uncertainty. Investors can earn if the stock prices increase, but they can lose money if the stock prices decrease, or worse, if the company goes bankrupt. So, in other words, investing in stocks is risky, but there's a high possibility of higher returns. On the other hand, bonds is a form of debt financing or raising money by borrowing from investors. So, bonds is a form of debt financing. Investors are guaranteed interest payments and a return of their money at their maturity date. So, uncertainty comes from the ability of the bond issuer to pay the bondholders. So, bonds issued by the government pose less risk than those by companies because the government has guaranteed funding or taxes from which it can pay its loans. So, can bonds can be appropriate for retirees because of the guaranteed fixed income, or for those who need the money soon because they cannot afford to take a chance at the stock market. So, comparing the two, stocks is stocks pose higher risk but has a higher possibility of higher returns, while in bonds, lower risk, but of course, in exchange, there will be a lower yield. So bonds is more appropriate for retirees because it is guaranteed that the investors can have their income in the form of bonds, and anyone who invests in bonds can take their money in take their money at the maturity date. So we have our first problem here. It is said that Mr. Boni invested with a capital of 5,000 pesos and bought shares from a company that sells stocks at 50 pesos per stock. If the company issued 10,000 shares and declares 500,000 pesos dividend for the common stocks per year, how much dividend does Mr. Boni acquire? So, to get organized, let us first write the given. We have a total dividend of 500,000 and number of shares 10,000. So we have our first problem here. it is said that Mr. Boni invested with a capital of 5,000 pesos and bought shares from a company that sells stocks at 50 pesos per stock. If the company issued 10,000 shares and declares 500,000 pesos dividend for the common stocks per year, how much dividend does Mr. Boni acquire? So, to get organized, let us first write the given. We have a total dividend of 500,000 and number of shares 10,000. So we are not yet done, as we are yet to find out how much dividend does Mr. Boni acquired. So we have this formula: dividend equal to dividend per share times number of shares. Number of shares which the investors or the investor acquired, or bought. So we have 50 times the number of shares that Mr. Boni bought, which is 100. So we have a 5,000 dividend that Mr. Boni acquired. So this is the final answer. So these formulas are appropriate for problems like this, in which mm, the number of shares bought by the subject is not stated. Only the number of shares, and the total dividend issued by the company. Now we have our second example. Mrs. Reyes owns 300 shares on a blue chip company in the stock market. If the said company declined a 3% dividend on the stock with a par value of 550 pesos, how much is the dividend she received? So I hope you have reviewed your definition of terms, and we know that par value is the per share amount as stated on the company's certificate. So when you invest on stocks of on a company, you have a per share, an agreed upon per share amount stated. So in Mrs. Reyes' case, the par value is 550 pesos. Now for problems like this, we have a formula for solving for the dividend. We have dividend equal to the dividend percentage times the par value times the number of shares. Now we have 0.03, the 3% in which the company declined in the stock market, and a par value of 550 pesos, and the number of shares she owns 300 shares. Um, we have then 4,950. So the dividend Mrs. Reyes received is 4,950 pesos. Now, we use this formula for problems in which the dividend percentage is given. Unlike the previous example where the dividend per share is solved first, the dividend per share is equal to the total dividend divided by the total shares. So in here, the total dividend is not given, but the dividend percentage is. So given this table, we have the values for the two corporations, Corporation AAA, Corporation ZZZ, which we have the dividend per share and the current value. So solve for the stock yield ratio of the two corporations. So the stock yield ratio is given by stock yield ratio is given by equal to dividend per share divided by the current value or the market value. So for corporation AAA, let's let the calculator do the work. We have 5 divided by 150, which is the SYR for AA is 0.033, which is equivalent to 3.33%. And for corporation ZZZ, we have an SYR equal to 18 divided by 250, which is 0.072, which is in percentage 7.2%. So comparing the two corporation, um, we would like to invest or buy more in corporation ZZZ because it has a higher stock yield ratio. So you will gain more in corporation ZZZ than in corporation AAA.